All right, so I finished my general announcements. I highlighted the fact that we're taking CFU 2 today, and it'll be passed back next week on Tuesday. CFU number 1 was passed back today, so it's retakeable until next week, Thursday. Students were already given time at the top of page 17 to complete multiplication practice. And we're going to jump down to the bottom of the page to do one quick example before we get to further review today. After reviewing the problems on page 18 and 19, we'll be taking CFU number 2. All right, so this says find the domain and range of the function, graphed it right. Please remember once again, domain is all of your x values. So how far left and how far right does the function go? Whereas range is all of your y values. How far down and how far up does the function go? My recommendation is to imagine a box that sort of captures the whole function. But here's where it gets a little bit weird. The function starts at this point up here in the top left corner. But this point down here at the bottom is not a point, it's an arrowhead. So what that's telling you is the function keeps going down and to the right, down and to the right, down and to the right, down and to the right forever. It never stops. So in terms of the left-right motion, that's your domain. This thing starts as far left as -5, but then it just goes over and over and over and over forever to positive infinity. So your domain starts at -5 with a bracket, because it actually hits -5, and then it goes to the right forever. That's infinity. Now, for your range, that's your up-down motion. You want to know how far down does the function go? How high up does the function go? Well, it goes down forever. So it goes down to negative infinity. Okay, but it goes up, 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 and it doesn't get any higher than +5. So your range goes all the way down to negative infinity because it never stops going down. And as high up as it goes is 5. It doesn't go any higher than 5. Okay, we'll have more practice with this type of stuff on page 19. Questions? So we're going to turn to page 18 here. And again, I want to remind you, you will have one of these types of problems on today's CFU. Okay, and I'm going to give you all time to try C yourselves. I'm going to go through A and B first. All right. So with the directions, it says for each function below, create an accurate graph of the function by plotting and labeling at least 5 points on the graph, then use interval notation to express domain and range. So I'm going to go to my calculator, I'm going to reset it, and I'm going to type in this function x minus 1 squared plus 2. Okay, and remember I said I'm going to do this really fast for the first two examples. I go to y equals, I type x minus 1 squared plus 2. Now, if I hit graph, I can see the thing that I'm trying to create. So ultimately, I want to create that graph over here. But again, to help me do that, I want to get points off of the table. Now, when you're getting points off the table, remember, avoid numbers that are too big to fit on the grid. So don't worry about the 11. Okay, and if you go up the other direction, you can't really go as far as -2 because, again, you get a number that's too big. So take any of the points that have numbers small enough that you can actually graph them. Okay, so you'll notice I have some numbers in green because I would not say that you should record those. Only the points in blue. Okay, now when you plot those points, the blue points, you get these 5 dots. And again, that's meant to, I'll come right back to the screen. Those 5 dots are meant to help you create this curve. That's why you're plotting those dots. Okay, and then I'll do my best to just draw a curve, keeps going up and to the left, draw a curve, keeps going up and to the left. So this is a function that when you're talking about the domain, which is how far left and right does this thing go, it goes left forever and it goes right forever. Because as it's going up, it keeps spreading out further and further. But as far as your range is concerned, which is how far down and how far up does this thing go, it may go up forever, but it does not go down forever. The lowest it reaches is right there at, what is that, +2 for your y value? So the lowest it reaches is +2, but then it goes up forever. All right, next one that I'm going to go through pretty quickly, square root of x plus 8. So I go to my calculator, I reset it, second plus 712. I go to y equals and type square root of x, I already forgot, plus 8. Couldn't remember if it was plus or minus 8. Okay, now if I hit graph, I get a visual of the thing I'm trying to create. And that, by the way, helps me realize, oh, this thing starts back at -8. So when I go to my table, I should probably go back to -8. Okay, so I'm going to go to my table, and I'm going to go back to -8. Okay, because that's where it starts, negative 8, 0. By the way, if I go any further, I'm just going to see a bunch of error messages because the function doesn't exist over here. It starts at negative 8 and then goes to the right forever. By the way, and I know I'm doing this a little bit out of order now, I just gave the domain. I said it starts at negative 8 and goes to the right forever. I don't even need to create the graph to know that. I can look at the calculator and know that. It goes as far to the left as negative 8 and then shoots to the right forever. Now, in terms of the coordinate pairs that I want, I go to the table. I'm going to get negative 8, 0, negative 7, 1, negative 4, 2. I'm sticking to the nice clean numbers. I'm ignoring the ugly decimals. Okay, let me keep going. I'm going to take 1, 3. That's only 4 points. The directions were to get 5. So let me keep going. And I get 8, 4. Now, there are other points I could get, but you have to go off the grid to get them. For example, 17, 5. 17, you can't even graph on the grid. It's too big. Okay, so that 8, 4 is the last point. Okay, so negative 8, 0, negative 7, 1, negative 4, 2, 1, 3, and 8, 4. If I graph those 5 points, I get those. And again, those dots are meant to help me create this curve. That's ultimately the thing I'm trying to create. Okay. So I start at negative 8, 0 and just draw a curve that goes through those points. Now we already have the domain listed, so we still need to get the range. Range is how far down and up are you going? Okay, and you'll notice this thing goes up forever, but it does not go down forever. The lowest down it goes is that very first point, which is at a height of 0. So it starts at 0 and then goes up forever. All right, so I'm going to go through C, and Mr. Fee and I, between the two of us, we had probably 5 different people ask the exact same question. So I want to make sure I address this question, which was, which points should I get? How do I know which points to take? Okay, and the real answer is it doesn't matter. It's just think about what you're trying to do, and what you're trying to do is create a graph. So let me show you what I mean by this. First off, I'm going to reset my calculator. I'm going to go to y equals, go to the catalog to get absolute value, and type x, what is it, plus 3? Yes, plus 3, and then minus 5. Now, many of you, in my opinion, are making the mistake of going straight to the table. And the problem is, you've got a gajillion points that you could copy. So you have no idea which points you should copy. This is why I keep saying, go to the graph. Get an idea of which points you want to get. Because think of it this way. Let's say you start at positive 2, and you get the point at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Well, if you go to your paper, and I'm going to do this in red because I don't like it, if you get the points at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, then what's going to happen is you're going to think the function just looks like that. And that's a problem. You don't draw the V. Okay? So what I would recommend you do is, again, when you type in the equation, hit graph and look at it and see that it's a V, and see that this bottommost point hits at, what is that, negative 3, negative 5? So you probably definitely want negative 3. You probably definitely want the x value at negative 3 because that's the bottom point. As far as the other points you get, remember I said anywhere where it hits the x-axis is a good thing. Like get negative 8, get positive 2. Those are really good points to help you out. Okay, but it really doesn't matter. So like you could take negative 8, negative 5, negative 3, 0, 2, 7. It really doesn't matter. Your goal is to draw the V. There's no rule about which 5 points you have to take. All right, so when I did this, I searched for all the zeros I could. So I found negative 8, 0. I saw 0, negative 2. I saw 2, 0. So I took all those. But then I just took a couple random points, like at negative 5. I think the other one I took was the bottommost point at negative 3. Okay, those are the points I decided to take. Okay, but there's nothing that said you had to take those exact 5 points. Any points that allow you to draw this V are good. Because this is your real goal. Draw the graph. Okay? So once again, my domain is left, right. This function goes left and right forever. My range is how far down and up this thing goes. It does not go down forever. The bottommost point is down at -5, but it does go up forever. So -5 to infinity. So once again, on today's CFU, there will be one problem like these, where you're given the function, you have to create a table, create the graph, and then list the domain and range. This problem takes a little bit of time. These problems are much faster. So there's going to be 2 of these on the CFU today. Now, what I'm thinking is I'll do the 2 on the left, and then I'll give you all time to do 2 on the right. I'll take questions, and we'll be done. Okay? So the directions for number 3 says, use interval notation to express the domain and range of each graph below. So looking at A, remember what I recommended was picture a box that sort of traps the entire function. And now all you have to decide is for domain, how far left and right does this thing go? Okay, and I'll write that down here. So domain is your x values. How far left and right does it go? In this case, it goes as far left as 0 and as far right as +6. So that would be your domain. Now, your range is all your y values, which is how far down and how far up does it go? Well, the lowest down it goes is -5. The highest up it goes is +2. And notice I used a bracket on everything. That's because both of those points are closed. Closed points get brackets. Okay? Now, this next one, well, actually, I said I'd do one of the ones down at the bottom. I'll do D. I'll do this one down here. Okay? So I already did A, questions on A. All right, now let me do the one down at the bottom. You'll notice this one, D, I'm going to do D. It has an open point, but then it has no point over here on the right side. What that means is that this thing keeps going. So if you try to put a box around this, that's not actually the accurate box because it doesn't stop here. It may start at this point over here, but over here, it just keeps going up and to the right, 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 and it never stops. Does that make sense? So in terms of your domain, you know, how far left and right does this thing go? The furthest left it goes is -4, but remember that open point means it doesn't actually hit -4. It just gets really, really close to it, like -3.9999999. It never actually gets to -4. That is why we use a parenthesis, not a bracket. And by the way, it keeps going to the right forever. That's infinity. And as I've said many times already, infinity is not a number. You can't touch infinity. Infinity just keeps going. So infinity will always get a parenthesis. You will never see me put a bracket on infinity because you can never equal infinity. It's not a number. Okay. Now for your up down, this thing, remember, your range is how far down and up do you go? The lowest it reaches is -1, and it actually touches down there, and then it goes up forever. So this is -1 to +infinity. Notice the -1 gets a bracket because it actually goes down to -1, but the infinity gets a parenthesis because you can never actually touch infinity. All right. All right, so I gave you all a couple minutes to work there. Real quick, I'm going to post the answer key to B. Notice that if you put a box around this entire function, the furthest left it goes is -2. The furthest right it goes is 6, but that's an open point at 6, so it does not actually touch 6. 6 should have a parenthesis. For range, it goes as far down as -6. It goes all the way up to the top of that hump, hits +8. So -6 to 8. Okay, a lot of people might have made the mistake of saying -6 to 2, but that's wrong because it doesn't stop. It may stop at that point, but earlier it reached a higher location. Okay, so you can't just draw a box from point to point. You have to realize the function also reached way up there. You're trying to name the highest it reaches and the lowest it reaches anywhere. Okay. And then finally with this one, it shoots left and right forever. So domain is negative infinity to positive infinity, and it shoots down forever with a highest peak at +6. All right, at this point, we're done with our review. So students are going to be given the remainder of the period to complete CFU number 2. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.